Hi, in this session we are continuing to look at CSS. CSS, as you know, is cascading style sheets and is used to style your HTML pages and web content. So we'll continue looking at CSS today. So far we looked at various examples of CSS. So CSS adds styles to websites, and in the syntax there are these basic components. So here you have the selector and a declaration, and within the declaration you'll have a property and a value. So here for heading 1, and then within curly brackets you have the property color, and we're setting the value to blue followed by a semicolon, and setting the other second property font size, and again with a colon here, and the value here is 12 pixels, and again with a semicolon. So that's the way you specify the CSS syntax. And CSS can add style to any predefined HTML element, and you can create your own categories as well. When you have, you can specify classes and IDs. Classes you can have many per page, but if you want to have specify the property for something unique within a page, then you can use the ID property. So you can use CSS to style your page. You can set the color properties, font family, font size, border, background, etc. But you can also use CSS to build the layout of your web pages. So you can have a box model, a border, the spelling here should be border, margin, padding, positioning, floating, etc. So you can do a lot with CSS. So here we are looking at a very basic layout, a page layout using CSS, and it's very useful if you understand it this way. So what you have are a few components over here. So box model is a box that wraps around HTML elements, and it consists of these four: the margins, borders, padding, and the actual content. And the box model allows us to add a border around elements and to define the space between different elements. So here you have a few things. One is the actual content, which can be text and images. And this padding here is the space surrounding the content. So it's the space between the content and the border, and it's transparent. You don't see it. And if you specify that the padding to be 0, for instance, then the content will be right at the border. It will be touching the border. And the border goes around the padding and the content. And you can, if you specify it to be 0, again you don't see it. But if you specify it to be at least 1, then you can see the border surrounding the content. And a margin is a clear space around the border, and the margin is transparent as well. So you don't really have to use all of these, but it can be a very helpful reminder to note that the box model can be applied to every element on a given HTML page, and that's a very powerful thing to know. So you can, for any element, whether it's an image or any other different parts of the content that you have on the page, you can have the content, the padding, the border, and the margin. So here we have an example of putting a border around all of the elements, so you can see where they are on the page. So here the border is set to 5 pixels, which is a solid red, and this applies to all the elements on the page. So that way you can see that what all are the different elements on the web page. So that you can try this out. It's a very simple way to look at all the elements on a given HTML page. And here you have again the heading to set, and then you can specify different properties for the border. You can specify the style and the width, color, and different borders for different sides. So you're saying that this is the border width and the style is dashed. You can have a solid border. It's a dashed border in this case, and the width of the left border is 10 pixels, and the width of the right border is also 10 pixels in this case, and the color here is red. And margin is as we saw earlier. This was the margin on the very outside of your element. So you can specify the properties for the margin as well. So here it clears out, the margin clears out the space around the element, like the margins of a page. And the possible values for it are auto, length, percentage, and inherit. So here you're specifying margin top, right, bottom, and left. So for the paragraph, you're saying that have 25 pixels of margin on the top, 50 pixels on the right, 75 pixels at the bottom, and 100 pixels on the left. And the negative margins can force the elements to overlap. So if you say that, okay, for this ID, the margin top should be minus 10 pixels. So in this case, it moves the element 10 pixels upwards rather than downwards. If it was 10, if it is a positive 10 without the minus sign, then it would move downwards. Then the margin would extend downwards. And then let's look at the padding. So here, this is the padding which is surrounding the content right here, over here, and that's in between the border and the content. So it's just an empty space there. And the possible values for the padding here are length and the percentage of the containing element. And here you have the same shorthand as for margins like top, left, bottom, and right. So this is your padding values is for top, it's for left, and for bottom, and this is for right. And writing this is the same as writing this in more extensive form, where you say padding top, padding right, padding bottom, and padding left. But it's much easier to write it this way. So the box model is important to understand when you talk about layout, to understand how you can specify the properties for the padding, border, and margin. And after that, we'll look at positioning in CSS.